Cris Carter was born on November 25, 1965, in Troy, Ohio, the youngest of 7 children in a household marked by financial struggle and resilience. His mother, Joyce, worked multiple jobs to keep the family afloat after his father left, and it was under these modest circumstances that Chris's competitive spirit was forged. He grew up watching his older brothers excel in sports, but there was something different about Cris, something hungrier, sharper, more relentless. Even as a child, he wasn't just playing to win. He was playing for escape. Football wasn't a game. It was a way out. From an early age, Carter showed immense promise as an athlete. He was fast, agile, and had hands that seemed magnetic. He idolized Harold Carmichael and Lynn Swann and would spend hours studying their movements. But while he loved the game, it wasn't until high school that he truly began to separate himself from the rest. At Middletown High School, he excelled not only in football but also in basketball, where he was a standout guard. In fact, he initially believed basketball would be his future. But once colleges saw his raw ability as a wide receiver, his body control, timing, and uncanny ability to make difficult catches in tight coverage, it became clear that football was his path forward. Cris accepted a scholarship to Ohio State University, where he played under coach Earl Bruce. From the very beginning, he made an impact. He wasn't the fastest receiver on the field, but he didn't need to be. His routes were precise, his hands were reliable, and his instincts in the red zone were unmatched. In just 3 seasons with the Buckeyes, Carter tallied 168 receptions, 2,725 yards, and 27 touchdowns, a school record at the time. In 1986, he became Ohio State's first All-American wide receiver in nearly 2 decades. But as his star rose, so did the pressure. And behind the scenes, his off-field decisions began to cast a shadow over his on-field brilliance. Just before his senior season in 1987, Carter signed with a sports agent and accepted money, an NCAA violation that rendered him ineligible to play his final collegiate season. The fallout was crushing. Overnight, he went from a projected top NFL draft pick to a cautionary tale. Despite his talent, many teams were wary of the controversy. Eventually, the Philadelphia Eagles selected him in the 4th round of the 1987 NFL supplemental draft. The opportunity was there, but Carter was far from stable. In Philadelphia, he flashed brilliance in spurts. He had good hands, made difficult catches, and showed signs of future greatness. But behind the scenes, he was battling demons: substance abuse, ego, and immaturity. His drinking and drug use began to affect his performance and professionalism. By 1989, things came to a head. Head coach Buddy Ryan made a now famous decision. He cut Cris Carter from the team. When asked why, Ryan offered a line that would follow Carter for decades. "All he does is catch touchdowns." Carter had scored 11 of them the season before, but it wasn't enough to outweigh the chaos off the field. He was lost, professionally, emotionally, spiritually. But sometimes rock bottom is exactly where the foundation is laid. Claimed off waivers by the Minnesota Vikings, Cris Carter arrived in the Twin Cities with his NFL career hanging by a thread. And in Minnesota, something changed. Surrounded by coaches who believed in second chances and teammates who demanded accountability, Carter began to rebuild. Not just his game, but his life. He entered rehab, recommitted to his faith, and began to see the game not as a spotlight but as a responsibility. Over the next few seasons, he transformed himself from a talented but troubled receiver into one of the greatest wideouts the league had ever seen. In Minnesota, the second chapter of Cris Carter's life began, not just as an athlete but as a man. After joining the Vikings in 1990, he initially served as a backup receiver, quietly learning, staying out of trouble, and re-establishing himself as a reliable presence. But as the years progressed, so did his role. By 1993, he had emerged as the team's top target, hauling in 86 receptions for 1,071 yards and 9 touchdowns. It was the beginning of a historic run. Over the next decade, Carter would not only dominate statistically, but redefine what it meant to be a possession receiver. He wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the flashiest, but his hands were legendary. Sideline toe taps, acrobatic grabs in the end zone, and one-handed catches in traffic became routine. His route running was surgical, meticulous, and devastating. Defenders knew the ball was coming his way on third down or in the red zone, and they still couldn't stop it. His control in the air and awareness of space made him a nightmare to cover, even when double-teamed. Off the field, Carter became a vocal leader, mentoring younger players, holding teammates accountable, and setting a new tone in the Vikings locker room. He spoke openly about his past mistakes, his battles with addiction, the pain of being cut by Philadelphia, the humiliations that had followed. And in doing so, he turned himself into an example of redemption, not a cautionary tale. The same man who had once been adrift now stood as a pillar of stability, both for the team and for the city of Minneapolis. He built a new life there, not just as a football player, but as a husband, father, and man of faith. Between 1993 and 2000, Carter went on a run that placed him among the greatest wide receivers in NFL history. He posted 8 straight seasons of over 1,000 receiving yards. In 1994 and 1995, he caught an astounding 122 and 122 passes respectively. At the time, record-breaking numbers. He led the league in touchdown receptions in 3 separate seasons and made the Pro Bowl 8 times. Every Sunday, it seemed like Carter was rewriting what consistency looked like. Week after week, he delivered. There were few, if any, drops. His presence in the red zone was as automatic as a field goal. Teammates trusted him, quarterbacks depended on him, and fans revered him. But Carter's peak wasn't just about personal success. It was also about team elevation. In 1998, with the arrival of rookie sensation Randy Moss, the Vikings fielded one of the most explosive offenses the league had ever seen. That season, Carter played the role of mentor and co-star. While Moss dominated headlines with jaw-dropping athleticism and long bombs from quarterback Randall Cunningham, it was Carter who kept the offense grounded with surgical efficiency. That year, the Vikings finished 15-1, setting a then NFL record for points scored in a season. Carter finished the year with 1,011 yards and 12 touchdowns, and though their Super Bowl dream was crushed in a heartbreaking NFC Championship loss to the Atlanta Falcons, the 1998 Vikings remain one of the most celebrated teams to never win a title. For all his individual brilliance, a Super Bowl ring would remain the one piece missing from Carter's legacy. Throughout his career, he made the playoffs 9 times but never made it to the big game. Still, that void never overshadowed his contributions to the sport. He finished his career with 1,101 receptions, 13,899 receiving yards, and 130 touchdown catches, second only to Jerry Rice at the time. He retired after a brief stint with the Miami Dolphins in 2002. His place in NFL history secure. Following his playing days, Carter smoothly transitioned into broadcasting, bringing his deep football IQ and charismatic delivery to television screens across the country. As an analyst for HBO, ESPN, and later FS1, he gained new fans, this time as a voice rather than a receiver. He was insightful, passionate, and at times brutally honest, a reflection of the journey he had taken. He didn't sugarcoat mistakes because he had lived them. He spoke not just from a place of knowledge, but of experience, pain, and growth. In 2013, Cris Carter received football's highest individual honor, induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The moment was emotional, long overdue in the eyes of many, and richly deserved. In his induction speech, Carter broke down in tears, thanking the people who had lifted him when he couldn't stand on his own. His mother, his mentors, his former coaches, and most notably, Vikings head coach Dennis Green, who, he said, rescued me. He spoke candidly about addiction, second chances, and God's grace. It was more than a football speech. It was a sermon, a confession, and a celebration all in one. Today, Cris Carter remains a towering figure in NFL lore. He is admired not just for what he did on the field but for how he reclaimed his life off of it. He is a mentor to young athletes, a public speaker, a Hall of Famer who turned his lowest moments into launching pads for something greater. His story is not simply one of athletic achievement. It is one of redemption, resilience, and the refusal to be defined by one's worst chapter. In the end, the phrase Buddy Ryan once used to justify cutting him, all he does is catch touchdowns, became a badge of honor. Yes, Cris Carter caught touchdowns. A lot of them. But he also caught himself when he was falling. He caught the wisdom of his mistakes. He caught the second chance life offered and never let it go. And in doing so, he became not just one of the greatest receivers of all time, but one of the most human.